Support for the Thursday Night Photo Talks is provided by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. Artist fees for the Thursday Night Photo Talks have been underwritten by the Lillian F. and Jerome L. Sidler Fund for Visual Media. Again, welcome, Tommy. Tommy Ka is a foam talent, a finalist for the Jerome Hill Fellowship and the Hyères, I don't know if I said that right, Photography Grand Prix. Do you know how to say it? Hyères?
Here.
Yeah. Yeah. Photography Grand Prix, thank you. A recipient of the CR Magazine's Photography Annual and En Foco Photography Fellowship, and a former artist in residence at the Center for Photography at Woodstock, Lightwork, the Camera Club of New York, and most recently, a Celebrate the Studio resident at International Studios and Curatorial program. He was named one of 47 artists in the inaugural Silver List in 2021. His work is exhibited and published in many spaces, including a recent interview in the Photographer's Green Book. And I just want to put a plug out. If you haven't gotten your copies, I think there might be a few left, but there's a beautiful interview with Jay Simple in the book. And I hope you can check it out. Tommy Ka circumnavigates and experiments with the language of self-portraiture in surprising and funny ways. His studies of self show connections to those in close proximity, both loved ones and strangers. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us this evening. Welcome, Tommy.
Hi, thanks for having me, y'all. I've been such a big fan of Philadelphia Photo Arts Center. I'm so afraid I'm gonna butcher something, so I'm just gonna roll with it. But thank you guys for joining me tonight over Zoom. I'm gonna share my screen.
Hey, Tommy, can I go ahead and hit the record button real quick?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, because it makes a noise. Thanks, everyone.
Hey. So that's my name. And I'm Tommy Ka. I am originally from Memphis College of Art, or Memphis, Tennessee. And I went to Memphis College of Art for my undergrad and got my MFA in photography from Yale University. And yeah, this is kind of a sort of non-linear way of showing some of my work tonight. I tend to work concurrently with different sorts of bodies of work over the years. And at least in the last 10 years, I've been working on about 6 different projects, which I'll share with you guys today. Oh yeah, this is the sound test. I included this slide. This is what I'm currently kind of been investing in figuring out ways to explore self-portraiture outside of photography, but in a way that has that kind of photographic impression, that kind of photographic trait. Recording is like one of the very simple familiarity of photography that I think crosses over to sound and audio. And this is like my DNA. I had my DNA tested about 8 years ago, and I managed to get this DNA translated as a sound. And I use that as like a good tester in case if hopefully everyone heard the volume all right. A little bit of background for me. I actually started out while I was an undergrad. I started out working as a photographer on film sets on independent features, Team Picture, directed by Kentucker Audley, and then it kind of just dissipated as I like finished school, and towards the end after graduating from Yale, I acted a little bit here and there, including like Laurie Simmons' My Art, which I think you could still stream on Amazon Prime. It's like a really beautiful slice of life art film that I was really just giddy to be asked to participate, which kind of started inspiring some things that what I said earlier about this kind of finding a familiar, exploring self-portraiture outside of photography, and one of them would be like video. So this is just like these stills of and also an example of my interest in long form. I don't really believe in ending projects. There's always just this kind of loose threads that I want to continue to evolve and push the materials and subject matter at hand. For this video piece, this is called an extras reel, which is a soft take on actors reel. And so I joined a casting union when I moved back to New York after grad school, and started like appearing in the backgrounds of TV shows and movies, and started just like having to calculate participating in being this extra where I'm neither a main actor or a real person, but I'm there to create this kind of ambience of reality just by being in the background. So I started like editing these really short clips where every time I spot myself in the background, and it's just kind of finding where's Waldo, Carmen Sandiego kind of deal. But shifting to, I'm going to move this window over so I can see the titles. This is Return to Center. It's one of the, like my earliest bodies of work that I felt had this kind of shift to self-portraiture. I moved to New York City at the end of December 2009, and I never actually lived outside of Memphis before then. So all my ideas of New York was filtered through this project specifically of trying to get to know New York City, where before was informed by my idea of New York was informed by I Love Lucy, which I learned English from, and Law and Order, which is like really two very disjointed, jarring references. I was kind of, for this body of work, I was kind of really inspired by this early video, Something Good. And it's this, one of the earliest non-caricature recording of two Black bodies, Black actors. And it's not caricatures. This is made in 1898. I think this video will play if I did this correctly. Yeah. It's a silent film, but this idea of representation through the lens, through whether it's the photographic lens or film cinematic lens, there's this idea of representation that photography especially has been complicit since its discovery. I don't really tend to call photography an invention. I call it more of a discovery. And it's kind of important for me to say that like photography has been definitely complicit in the imaging of otherness. And I love that film so much because it's one of the earliest films, and I think maybe the first one to depict Black bodies as non-caricatures. Right now I'm just jumping ahead to showing the installations of this. So yeah, this is one of the ways I started displaying my work quite recently. I had my first showing of this in 2019. Sorry, time space collapsed, so I have to think about these dates now. And pushing it further in like the instead of the idea of picture making, it's the experimentation, having fun and making these pictures is also about the photographic print, the kind of second life of photography, and how our interactions to an image can be seen in different ways. So I started like playing around and folding and bending these vinyl prints. And then I kind of like jumped back into this. Sorry, that slide is out of order. And so I moved to New York City and end of 2009, and then spent a semester in 2010 not knowing anybody. I was used to like photographing people. I was mostly known to do these portraits of my musician friends, my artist friends, and people who were willing to sit for me. I was really not interested in myself as this kind of subject matter, because I didn't think I had a lot to say about my experiences. And having not know a lot of people when I moved to New York, I started just asking my studio mates at this residency I was attending. And pretty soon, like, we started exploring as a group together, because it was a lot of our first time being in New York City as well, seeing a Cindy Sherman, seeing a Deanne Arbus, like, in person. It was such an amazing experience, and still is, to see art in person. Coming from Memphis, everything was rendered as like a projection in art history classes for me. And over time, shifting from the choice in these collaborators, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. It started out trying to get to know people more and more of the city. And then I was exposed to two really big performance pieces. One was Tina Segal at Guggenheim, What is Progress? And Marina Abramovic, the artist, is present. Again, like, being from Memphis, I'd never experienced or participated in a performance before. And I felt that a lot of those things started influencing the way I thought about picture making and and the strategies of it. And so, shifting from people I've just met from studio mates, the kissers started to become more elaborate, from strangers approaching people at bars, asking ex-lovers, friends and friends, and now recently has been including like more fictive, more setup, more inclusions of actors and models. This kind of try to, originally the intent was to survey how differently people kiss, or surveying people how they kiss me, and then seeing the first 15 shots, I ended up like realizing how differently people kiss me. And the rules have stayed the same. I've been working on this project since 2010. It's supposed to be, I recently declared it to be a lifelong project, mostly because I haven't really been told in undergrad like how to end a project, and I kind of just am going with it because no one's just telling me no, that I don't need to stop. And it's something of a project that I'm really fond of, that has taken me to a lot of interesting places. This is from the show, my first time showing this work in a near totality at LMAKgallery in September 2019. It was really fun. I've like started bending photographs. I started printing. I really like printing them in small sizes. They are available as larger sizes as well. But my fondness in the original way I was displaying them was these Walgreens size postcards, things that you can approach. And they're intentionally on a shelf that's kind of installed at a lower angle. And hopefully you don't hear my roommate.
I don't hear him. I don't hear anything. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yay. And I kind of realized that when people started going in to look closer because of the smallness of them and the intimacy of the small size prints, they kind of were like leaning in as if like and having to bend over because the way the shelf is installed is kind of like right at my eye level. I think my mouth level actually. So intentionally when viewers view these, they kind of like repeating the act of kissing. And then I also started thinking about again, like trying to think, seeing how these pictures can live outside of a framed picture on the wall. And I managed to get these translated as 35mm slides using the same process that filmmakers who shoot film get a process and have the stock digitally scanned, edited, and reprinted back onto film stock. And with the final edit. So the process remains like very similar and kind of goes back to my love of or connection to cinema, but also since it was a quite recent translation of these images, they're really referencing back to my original love of Nan Goldin, who like really inspired this this project in the first place, and also Lily McElroy, who's one of my favorite photographers at the moment. And it kind of like has taken on new forms, especially with the pandemic, because it's really something I'd like to return to when I'm stuck on something, when I don't have any ideas on where to go. And so luckily I had some commissions and really great friends that I can trust that I proposed doing wearing masks while we while they kiss me, which, by the way, I don't think I said the rules out, but the rules have been the same since 2010. The kissers can kiss me however way they want to. It has to be on the lips and it has to be at night. And I like the shooting at night, not for the romanticism, but for the technical aspect of having the camera on a tripod, and then the shutter speed is just slow. So both of us have to, both the kisser and myself, have to hold our poses for the camera. But I, outside of those rules, I don't really give them a lot of direction. So everything is like, I don't know. It's mostly improvised on the spot after we find the composition that we both agreed on. So it's really trying to now shift to involving people in more of a collaborative effort, and returning to my first way of photographing was photographing people. Yeah, this is like the next one.
I just want to know, like, because you're unresponsive, right? You are the same, you hold yourself the same way for every, well, you try to, I imagine, but some people are picking you up or grabbing you around the neck, or, bringing you in close, and is it surprising? And you just have to,
yeah,
it's really, really beautiful.
Thank you. I was like, it's sometimes, well, and it's also one of the first photographs, photography project that I ended up having to shoot it digitally. Mostly because I kept laughing at the situation. Mostly this whole project is just me trying to go down in art history as a little bit slutty. Just a little bit.
It's a start.
And I guess I'm going to show you a preview. As I have during the pandemic, it's been really there's a lot of time to explore my archives and start pulling out things that I'll show you more down the line. But also, I've been working on, well, a book, and then now it's 3 books, and it's been madness. So you guys get to see a preview of this, designed by Mona Design, my graphic designer friends from school, and it's really beautiful. I'm really excited. I'm not really sure how this is going to be funded, outside of, like, I'm probably going to be footing the bill for the printing down the line, but it's really an amazing thing to see, even if it's like all digital. But the intention of it is to publish a new volume every 10 years, and then until, like, I'm no longer here. I'm interested in how this project has shifted from, over the years, this intention, this kind of survey of how differently people kiss me, to really picking up things that were reflective at the time. It was never really about representation until, I think, after school. It got a short excerpt of these pictures were shown on BuzzFeed, I think, or Huffington Post, and I had a lot of strong negative reaction from the Asian community for perpetuating stereotypes of Asian men, which they weren't wrong, because this is around 2013, and I think we only just got Glenn on The Walking Dead, and I cite Glenn on The Walking Dead because he's like actually the first Asian character in Western media, Hollywood, to be portrayed as fully dimensional and could fight zombies. And that kind of representation started coming into this body of work and going backwards a little bit. And then it started shifting to the conversation, the Me Too movement, and and I ended up having to talk more about this collaboration as, like, yes, there's consent. In order for these pictures to happen, consent had to happen. So I didn't want to reduce anyone's experiences, but to really accept that these conversations were happening. There's a lot of things that came out of Me Too that I really I'm really grateful for that kind of conversation to happen from this body of work. And the book is designed to where you flip it, you turn the book, and then the kiss is always towards the center, so the pictures move around in the book. And there's like a smaller body of work printed on different paper in between of these beds that I slept in over the years, on the road, doing shoots, traveling, doing lectures. And the point of these pictures are to create this kind of everyday performance that everyone does, this exercise that everyone does as a performance, and to photograph my presence, my lack of presence. So it's always these kinds of beds that end up being showing my impressions, my lack of presence. And then most of what I've been shifting towards is more conceptual with facades. And for facades, this is kind of comprised of different smaller mini bodies of work, mini projects. I'm Only Here to Leave, which is then I like translating it to Chinese characters and then translating those Chinese characters back into English, and presenting that as the full title of these bodies of work, but simply it's facades. And you can see more of the examples on the sides. And so I'm mostly inspired by the idea of the cutout and kind of spirit photography, and even looking at one of the earliest self-portrait by Hippolyte Bayard, terrible at French unless I'm drinking. And the humor that came out of the self-portrait as a drowned man, because it's a stage photograph. It's a response to the French government not recognizing Bayard's contribution to photography with his own process. And as I continue going through these materials, originally started out with cardboard cutouts. And while working with these different materials, I discovered that when Bruce Lee died, he didn't finish filming the rest of his scenes in Game of Death, so they hired an extra to pose behind this cardboard cutout of Bruce Lee's head. And I think this is the clip.
Well, sitting right there by the telephone, just waiting for you to call. Patience, that's not one of our virtues.
Just tell. And you just can tell that kind of jarring early CGI cardboard generated imagery. And it started, I started making the connecting the threads from my graduate studies. I made this picture of this Elvis cardboard cutout. Mostly I grew up 5 minutes away from Graceland. I lived in Whitehaven, neighborhood of Memphis that was originally a cotton farming agricultural center for people bringing crops up from the Mississippi Delta. And Whitehaven was the original spot, and then it became a city, part of the city of Memphis, and then experienced white flight around the time that Elvis moved into Graceland. So I bought this cardboard cutout in grad school because I was working with a 4x5 for most of the time, and I needed something to pull focus on. And so this was my car buddy, my ride buddy, my car, and it was really great. He's like a man who didn't have a lot to say. I had like a voice box that said 3 things. It was really fun. And so I started trying to create these. A way originally was like, how do I make pictures of myself without actually photographing myself? Mostly out of laziness, but also like the difficulties of my body is aging, is also like I've started experiencing adulthood problems. Back is hurting, and I tried to always continue. I started out doing these cardboard cutouts with a little hesitation because I didn't want to feel like I was well, Well, I wanted to pay homage to Reka Rasinger, who graduated from the Yale program, who also worked with self-portraiture through as cardboard cutouts. And I kind of like, I just had a lot of hesitation. And so quickly the cardboard materials sort of dip out, and I started thinking about other ways to how the cutouts can take form. But as I've been working with these cutouts, they always have to change because I just age. Like cells that shed and die off and new cells form. Our eyeballs are the first things that form in the womb. And so that's like, our eyes are just like constantly new and the oldest organ in our bodies. It's just kind of freaky to think about it. And trying to place them in real scenes. I didn't want to fake or construct these a picture at the moment. And as I'm losing interest with the cutouts and trying to play around with how these cutouts can take shape, I was thinking I ended up making these 3D printed mask of my face, which I also had to update, and not because I kept dropping them and breaking them. I'm very clumsy, and it really is about that kind of aging. And this is kind of similar process to the cardboard cutouts and fabricating them. Is like making these pictures, uploading them to a third-party company that can make them for me. And so they became these kind of props, these stand-ins, and also these kind of still lives, and kind of creating this ambivalent definition of what they exactly are, other than like the extension of myself. And sometimes I've interact with them and trying to play around with them to be more like still lives or more like portraits. And then quickly, like the materials continuously change as these new ideas started forming of temporary tattoos of my eyes. I have to note that I don't do Photoshop. I like color correct and crop, and that's the extent, because I don't have time to just composite and to do things. If I mess up on something or I'm not satisfied, I just go back out and try to capture that kind of similar lighting scenario and context. Because I'm less interested in the post-production and more about the playfulness and what is possible to do things in camera.
Mm-hmm.
And things like returning to the cardboard, and it's like, oh, I can perforate my face and then get a new face mask, and started thinking, and just like things that have really trying to look at the same, like kind of similar to looking at these projects in the process and trying to create like new ways from the same materials. Cloth mask didn't really pan out really well. This is probably the only picture that I liked with this. Cloth is just a very, very malleable thing. And having people wear it was very disturbing to me. And it just continued. I kept thinking about these ways of making unique photographs and photographic prints, to be more specific, and things that can't be easily addition, denying that kind of replication that photography can afford us with through additions and copies and copies.
Wow.
Yeah, this is some things I really pushed through with the pandemic, because puzzles had a new resurgence during the time, and I was reacting to a lot of things. And then working with video as well. This is trying to be outside of a kind of seriality that I want to deny in my own work, because it's just after a while working with the same thing and working with the same technique, I'm more interested in how to like tease things out and finding the connections further down the line. This is a collaboration between me and my friend, filmmaker friend.
Turn back the way it was. Their arm up, that hit right by your face there. Eyes tiny on me. Try to stay still.
even with this, I don't even arrive at my own representation or my own image. It's been a really fun collaboration. It's part of a longer year. Over the years, we just return to, or I green screen myself and send him the video, and then give him a few ideas and movies I'm thinking about. So it was a somewhat collaboration, but also like a surprise for me to see what he can do. And it kind of like delved into the other parts of the facades and exploring the idea of like, how can I make these self-portraits without actually photographing myself? And so I returned to Memphis periodically, even ever since I moved back to New York City. I live in Greenpoint now. You're actually seeing my studio, my home studio, and hopefully nothing weird is gonna be popping out. And so I started to really did a 180 and returned to doing more straightforward portraits and started chasing Elvis's. It's not Elvi because he's not Latin, so Elvis's is correct. And I love this idea of sharing the same themes of this idea of imaging and icon and pop culture, that all these different people from around the world come to Memphis on the anniversary of his death and not only perform, but kind of they inhabit his spirit. And this community has been really amazing and really open to be seen. It's beyond performance. It's this idea of changing their hair and putting on makeup and also imitating Elvis's dance moves. And within this body of work is this mini body work within a body of work is photographing my friend's kid, Coop, who is over the years has been training to be an ETA, an Elvis tribute artist. That's the politically correct term. It's not Elvis impersonator, it's Elvis tribute artist. So I have been photographing him minus the last year because I was unable to. I've been photographing him for the last 5 years and technically 6, but conceptually, I'm just going to put a blank frame on the wall. It's like 2020, you can guess what happened, why there's an absent picture. Some things like are beyond my control, and I'm really open to the things that kind of intervene from that makes it impossible, and accept it and trying to have fun with the limitations. I love this one just because it's this my 4x5 picture, and it's like Jesus and God are in the same room. And thinking a lot about this idea of twinning, because Elvis was born a twin, and his twin died at birth, and is buried alongside with the rest of his family, immediate family, on the Graceland estate. So every year, for the candlelight visual, people are allowed to come up and walk up to the garden to pay their respects. And instead of incorporating twins, like just really going with the full-on cliche of impersonators, tribute artists, and twins, but also returning to the theme of this idea of representation, the idea of false mirroring and things that kind of fall apart. And continuing this idea, I started casting people who were similar in age, size, and height, and have them wear my clothes, and making them be my these non-self portraits, and trying to find people that could be my own impersonators. As me performing I also kind of dabble, but I'm very, very terrible. I'm purposely terrible. I can't sing at all. And I love dressing up and then surprising people where I just do not perform. And this on the right, this is a recent fabrication I had done of me as Elvis, but as a Velvet Elvis painting. And then they sent me a second one because they forgot that they already did it. So now I have 2 of them. And this, what I read on Art After Trump, from the previous slide, this is actually what I ended up reading, were these letters from the government when I requested information about myself that they might have through the Freedom of Information Act. And every letter from the CIA and this is Homeland Security, FBI, they all said, relatively the same things. Like they had no idea who I was. Oh, I'm doing some new work. I just recently shot this in Memphis, and what you see, this new form of cutout, returning to the cloth, and discovered that I can make myself into these pillows, and it's back and forth. I'm just gonna show
Nice.
and it's been really amazing to work with, and trying to that's my real hand. The shutter cord is a common theme to hint at my presence, and then trying to really, I just went nuts, and during last year thinking how to display photography in new ways, and thinking about other ways of the cutout, not thinking about the background, things that I can pose in front of, and no one could well, I guess like in a way, like thinking the background as its own cutout, as a backdrop. So I started making these, and I hoped that these would become a show. And this is things I did during the pandemic while exploring my archive and selecting pictures, because I guess everyone was going through their archives and trying to glean work that they could access or didn't want to. For me, I wanted to see if there was anything I could cut out of my older pictures that were interesting. And so I started compositing all these things in camera, in front of the camera, constructing these sets. That's a backdrop, one of the backdrops with one of the cardboard cutouts you see in the other pictures. And this is like probably, minus the shelf that you see, everything here is completely made out of cardboard cutouts and photographic prints, just they like put together and referencing. Well, I'm going to be showing my lack of art history minor credit, because I'm one credit shy of an art history minor, because I can't recall the artist I want to say right now. But this one's definitely a reference to Ren Hong and the kind of constructing everything I can, while I was unable to actually see people in person last year. And something I want to return to for the winter while I'm stuck in cold New York. And this is a recent show that I've done at Natalie Card Gallery that just closed last Friday. And it's like Paula Sepoya, Alona Sorai, wow, I haven't said her last name in a while, and Whitney Hubbs. And it was such a really great show and fun, like one of the few times like translating this from Google Sketch to this having and having actual support was amazing. It's really recent having having this kind of support. I'm going to try to speed things up because I know we're running a little bit.
Love that install though. That is amazing. That looks amazing.
Yeah, afterwards it's like a lot of, I try not to waste any of the vinyl because they tend to be one-offs for each show. Mm-hmm. And so I started kind of what I did with the archive, started just cutting them up and like saving the pieces that I want to make into cardboard cutouts and then reconstructing them again. Because the idea of photograph and rephotographing, and then some more of the recent, this is a lenticular that I've been creating for a show also coming up alongside with these puzzle works, and kind of trying to collapse this kind of what photography lacks is this kind of idea of motion and time. And then actually, this is from last week when I moved into my residency. I'm a resident at the Silver Arts Project at the Building 4 in the World Trade Center, and started, well, my next thing is making these David Hockney photo collages directly onto the wall. And we'll see what happens. From here, I'm going to read off my phone for my notes, and this should go relatively fast, and this will be the last thing I'll show you, because this is something I've been working on and finally has started coming together a lot more. Finally was able to come to Memphis during the summer and finally see my family since Christmas 2019. And this is another, like the previous bodies of work, this is overall comprised of different bodies of work. Soft Murders is the main title, well, I lost my mouse. I'm trying to move this and I can't read any of the text. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'm just gonna read. Memphis sits on a bluff overlooking the Mississippi Delta. The Delta region has become, for me, not only the place where I was raised, but an active borderline between fantasy and memory, nostalgia and history, nonfiction and mythology. In the words of Alex Link, the American South is mainly something to ignore, forget, package in a movie or a monument, or remember with distorted nostalgia. My photographic work is both compelled by and challenges the memory and representation of Asian bodies in the South, an image history mostly decipherable through its incompleteness. There's works that I'm showing you is comprised of my mom's photography. I recently discovered that she made some pictures in 1984, which is the year after she fled Vietnam. And she eventually found her way to London, Ontario, and gifted me these pictures, which I had no idea about like about 5 years ago. I had no idea, and it was just simply titled Canada 1984. And started collecting like different ways. This is a screen grab of where my family's original home is. It's now a travel agency. I think of Sarah Charlesworth idea that to live in a world of photographs is to live in a world of substitutes, or so it seems, whose actual referent is always the other, that describe the reality of a world once removed. I use photography to critically examine photography's relationship to otherness, to examine what can appear in the image and what remains missing. I trace connections between the Mississippi Delta, Memphis Chinese, and the Chinatown communities through our shared ancestral language, Cantonese. I examine these threads by cataloging, surveying, and synthesizing the fleeting past, a Southern trait. The Southern landscape is a palimpsest, particularly in the South, where Chinese communities, they are dwindling. During the California Gold Rush, many Chinese immigrants, often men, immigrated from Guangdong province, southern China, and eventually spreading out as far south as Beale Street in Memphis to working on the Transatlantic Railroad. The city of Memphis never kept accurate records of Chinese immigrants. Much of their presences are known through epitaphs and segregated cemetery plots or newspaper ads about their laundromat businesses. Neither Black or white, Asians were classified as non-white or colored. Asian Americans have historically been rendered invisible by photography. Our experiences are often simply do not show up on the record. For instance, despite their vast contribution, Chinese railroad workers were left out of Andrew Russell's East and the West shaking hands at laying of last rail. That poor grammar of that title. I trace my body back to Singapore, late 1800s, China, older country, Vietnam, old country. The Treaty of Nanking established ports further west, introducing the camera to China. The Chinese word for photograph is shaying, which can mean working with the shade. The monarch butterflies that fly south will not make it back north. Each departure is final. Love that, I just missed that. Each departure then is final. Only their children return. Only the future revisits the past. Ocean Bung on Earth were briefly gorgeous. And then I'll end this with a few experimentations. This is like one of my mom's photographs reprinted. So I've been spending time like archiving her work and trying to display them as a way to really compare the generational gap between what her work is, which is really often celebratory and liberation with her friends, and to where my work is quite performative and semi-autobiographical. Another installation idea. Oh. I think I'll just end it there, honestly. But yay. Oh, thank you guys so much. I'd love to, if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them. I really should have said that you guys can interrupt me at any time during the talk. So
Thank you. I did put it in the chat because we forgot to say something in the front, but here come the questions. Jeremiah writes, "Hi, Tommy. Thank you so much for joining and sharing with us today. What is the process like breaking down those initial barriers, hesitancies with others, especially family and even yourself, to create more honest portraits and examinations without compromising your concept? Thank you."
oh, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I can't see my mouse, and I will answer that. Sorry about that. There we go. Hi. Thank you so much for that question. It's kind of in between, like having, I've been mostly a stage photographer. I like making and constructing these scenarios to where I can enter these photographic spaces that are really close to real life. But oftentimes there's such a, no matter how much I plan, I always end up going with the picture that comes out of these shoots that is the most like accidental and naturalistic as possible. If like someone sneezes or something, or makes a kind of face that was true to that moment, and that the cameras managed to capture, I ended up going towards that. So breaking away from my staged ideas. But for my family, it was, well, let's just say they put up with me. Family just, they tend to, particularly with my relatives, they kind of tend to run away from me because they know I would just chase after them, and they see me, it's like, oh Lord, there's Tommy with the camera, so we better hide. Or but you know, they're my family and they have to love me, but oftentimes they have a lot of immigrants, there's a lack of appreciation to art and photography. Like they're growing up, I barely had any family albums. I didn't even know about my mom's photography until relatively recent. So there's this kind of in between lack of well, a disinterest, I would say, from my family. And when they now are recently, they kind of allowed me to just be there, and like they know I'm making pictures. We just choose to not acknowledge the camera making that clicking the shutter sound. And yeah, and oftentimes it's like, no matter how much I plan, I'm saying this again, it's just, I love like to be surprised, and photography should be that should be the thing that we should all be chasing, or at least have fun and try to be respectful, and not dwell on something that didn't work out right. Because I think the beauty of photography is that it can still surprise me.
Feel free to also unmute yourself. Annalisa sends you a happy message of appreciation. Jonas writes, "Hi, Tommy. Absolutely love this presentation. Thank you so much. Question, I'm interested to know if there is one textile or texture you're most interested in exploring printing photographs onto in the future that you haven't explored yet. What would it be?"
Ooh, right now, I'm like focusing on making these pillows. And the cloth texture is probably something I've been challenged the most with, the way it's a way more malleable than the sturdiness of the cardboard cutout. It's a twofer though, because like cardboards are really hard to fly with. I always get stopped by TSA. I just carry the strangest stuff. Like I wish I had more of an example of that, but nearby. But I have illicit attention from the TSA as a result of what I carry on me. But I kind of want to explore printing on glass, returning to earlier exploration and related to spirit photography. like tintypes and daguerreotypes. We'll see what happens there, but do the arms move? They don't at the moment, but that's a good one. I want to like work with my friends who are more seamstresses. Actually, I would like to work with my aunts and my mom, because they actually do know how to sew. So that would be kind of cool, actually. If they are just oh, hi, Colleen. Ask a question like this, but I must travel between photography and sorry, I'm like one of those like loud whisperers. Readers.
I could just say it. I was wondering how you're producing the pillows. I work in fiber and photography myself, and I've played around with spoon flower a bit. Are you sewing?
No, I have not. I'm not really. I did not inherit that trait quite yet, but I would after thinking that my aunt like made all my face masks, and my mom too. So I'd love to pick that up at some point to do it myself. I've been with the face mask, the 3D printed face mask. I started working with NYU LaGuardia's print studio in order to fabricate more likeness. So they've been using surgical cameras to do a live scan, rather for me to send a picture of myself, and the earlier software would just render what they think it should look like. So now there's more accuracy, and LaGuardia Print Studio also trains whoever uses their labs is how to use the software. So I'm slowly learning to do it myself, but at the moment a lot of it is this trying to replicate that kind of process where you can go into a dark room and come out with a silver gelatin print. And for me, like to upload a picture and to have something come back that's not a traditional photographic print, it's kind of like I don't know, it's really fun for me, and that there are still photographs, but not in a like expected sense, and them also being transformed or used as these props and extensions of myself, where it's not easily definable, but I don't know, they're quite fun. But I loved that to evolve into doing it myself. I just haven't found the comfortability or the time to do it. But my aunt like asked me, "What are your favorite colors?" Blue. And then next day she's just like, "Here are all your masks." There's like 10 of them. I'm like, Jesus. So I'm hoping I will be able to do that.
Yay, that's wonderful. So Nanette asks, having spent a lot of time in Memphis, are there any galleries that support your work? David Gallery, Tone, question mark. What do you think?
I don't know Tone. That must be new. Nanette, I feel like are you from Memphis? Because it's so funny to see David Lusk gallery be referenced specifically. I actually had a hard time when I was in undergrad. Actually, still the treatment of my work has not been very. I haven't had a lot of fondness, and this is like mostly indicative of the South overall, not like just Memphis, but it like I had a video, they put it on a laptop and didn't put headphones, and it was a loud opening. A institution lost my entirety of my Polaroids, and it's just and also like earlier this year, I had a very homophobic reaction to a proposal to something I was asked to apply for, and I wanted to do something that was really I didn't think it was controversial, but was using my kissing pictures, and it was like, yeah, let's do this, like it'll be really fun. And so far it's just it's been really my experience has just been not very well. I'm hoping to change that, to push back against that. So far, that is my idea.
Thanks. I'm sorry for. How does an institution lose a body of Polaroids? I'm not sure. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. I mean, I feel I don't know. I feel like there's a lot. I like to be really open about my experiences being an artist, because there's to be an artist of color and a photographer of color. That it's my experience have not been very similar to my white peers, and so I think it's really important for me to be candid about that, and the things that the interactions with my work. Some of it made sense. Some of it is just kind of has to be talked about. Like, this shouldn't happen. If it's happening to me, I really hope it doesn't happen to other people. And I think the main reason why I'm so candid about things and open about things, which I really should show. If you guys are interested to see an example, is like tommycog.tumblr.com is a repository of all my rejection letters I could find over the years. And that's something I don't see, for example, talked about with artists, my peers, of these rejections. It's really hard. And I think everyone experiences this kind of rejection, the experience of receiving a rejection letter. And I just started posting that over the years. And so far, I haven't gotten in trouble with folks. So, but I think it's important to talk about these experiences, and just in hopes that this doesn't happen to other people.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you. I really do appreciate seeing the rejection letters. And I've always appreciated artists that talked about the downs as well as the ups when they hold space. I think that's really important. But it's 8:00 and I would love to hear more questions, or we can wish you well. I absolutely love your work, Tommy, and I learned so much, and I really thought that I would find it like I thought I would be able to like figure things out through the talk, because your work is so beautifully simple and complex, but then it just keeps getting more complex and more like you said, you like to create dead ends. I felt that really throughout the evening, where you think you get it, and then you take a turn, and it's just wonderful, and the journey is delightful, and so loving. So I just want to thank you for showing your work tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, y'all, for having me. Thank you, Lori, for setting this all up. Thanks, y'all. I'm like switching back and forth from North and Southern slang. Y'all for just asking questions and being here. I hope I posted my email, my studio email. I love answering questions even after the fact. Just feel free if you have any questions, or like yeah, I'm happy to answer them, unless they're weird.
Well, good luck with all the work you're doing with your teaching, and I really hope that you are in Philadelphia, your work, and I hope this continues, and I wish you the best and continued success.
I can't wait to visit. I don't think I have actually been to Phil.
Invitations are coming.
Yeah. Hey, awesome.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great evening, y'all.